Welcome to another edition of EdTalks. This is our Great Leaders series. Kris Nessa, I don't know why it took me so long to have you on when we talk about great leaders, but welcome to EdTalks.
Thank you so much for having me, Ed. I appreciate it.
No, I've been wanting to do this for a while actually, because you and I had the opportunity to serve together at Cleveland Clinic, and we had a great run together. You were amazing, one of the strongest individual and leaders on our team, and so it's like, wow, we need to have Kris on. But both of our lives kind of like went different directions. I left the clinic, you stayed on a little bit longer, then eventually you left. But tell us a little bit about yourself for those who might not know.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for such kind comments. I have to add a little asterisk. I think I'm one of the most blessed people in our entire healthcare industry for some of the leaders that I have partnered with in my journey. So, with that said, Kris Nessa, I am over 20 years in healthcare. I've spent a good chunk of my starting years at Cerner Corporation back in the heyday when Neal Patterson was still president, Paul Gorup. And I have to say, and I still give loads of credit to the start of my career, Cerner was such a great breeding ground for a lot of us to come out and truly understand the industry and get trained that we all are patients and that no matter what it is I was doing at Cerner, I likely was going to be treated at a facility that we were touching and or my family was as well. So I spent a good time at Cerner. And then after the passing of Neal Patterson, I decided to join the Cleveland Clinic. And you and I had a great time pre-COVID years and then kicking off COVID together. What a crazy time. Time at UT Dell Medical academic facility and with Dr. Clay Johnson and Aaron Mary at the time. And we did a lot during those COVID years as well. And then I also added some healthcare adjacent business structures. I worked at Tivity Healthcare, which owns Silver Sneakers, so the Medicare Advantage fitness program, along with a few other things, and also at VAR at SHI International. So that's kind of the breadth of my both provider and vendor side.
Yeah. No, that's really powerful. I always tell people like you should try and work in both sides because when you understand each side, I think it just makes for a better leader, makes for a better sort of person and, the ability to work well together with one another. And you're right, you've been blessed to work with many, many great leaders and I'm sure they instilled a lot of great values in you. And speaking of which, what are one or two things that have helped you in your career? Because while you have served with great leaders, you've become a great leader yourself. So, like, what are one or two of those leadership things that have really made a difference in your career so far?
Yeah. And I would add, aside from you, and I mentioned Aaron, Matt Cole, and Sarah Richardson were really great at all of these characteristics too. One of the key things I always loved was removing obstacles. I could come to any of you because I love to solve problems, or I'd get a phone call about something. I'm like, hey, I just need some leverage or carte blanche to go try to do this. And usually all of you are like, yeah, go do it. Or is something blocking you? What do you need? I'll go take care of it. So removing obstacles was one. And I kind of thought about this about and phrasing it like developing people, but I actually want to rephrase it as like you actually care about people. Like especially the four leaders, like all of you that I mentioned, and there are others that I've worked for, like you truly cared about us personally. And I think when that is noticed by an employee and a colleague, it just makes going to work and doing your job and crushing it all the more easier. And so, like, I really try to practice that and really like caring for the human and what it is they want in life and what's going on in their life at the time, too.
I'm going to give you a hard question then, since you brought that up. How do you remain human in the age of AI?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say holding space and accountability for what AI truly is, maybe adding the education element. I've reframed what it is I think we're all going through a lot to colleagues and peers in that, yes, this is a huge drastic change, but let me even boil it down to the lowest technical details. And I might have even talked about this on a recent podcast as well. Like at the core, it's still ones and zeros. And if you go talk to any or mess around with any frontier AI system, so like a Chat GPT or a Claude, what it got trained on is the internet. So like keep that relevant, right? So everything that we put on the internet, there's people that's trying to change the history of the internet and everything that's documented. And like just know that and keep it in its own space. But then look at yourself and what it is that you're really good at, that human, that EQ element, and maybe you're able to actually understand the workflow at your hospital and what makes your hospital special, what makes your team special, or what makes the cardiology team special that you all should capitalize on. So there's that balance, that the human being able to truly solve problems and see the value in something, or go through a true workflow that's happening in real time versus what this ones and zeros technology has learned from. That I think once you marry the two, that's truly where the power is. But each one on their own isn't far more superior than the other, to be quite honest. So
Yeah. Kris, that's very well said. Hey, one last thing. I want to glean some leadership out of you. So, a lot of our viewers are earlier stage career and they look at someone like yourself saying, I want to be like Kris. What is one thing you would share with someone who's early stage in their career that they should really focus on in order to someday become a great leader like yourself?
I'm going to give you two. Always say yes and keep learning.
I love that.
Real short and simple. Like, I remember being taught power of no, especially from a strategy and leadership perspective, like balancing the no, or not, now's not the right time. But man, I almost want to flip that on its head and say, I want to say yes. I want to hear everything that's coming. I want to hear the problems. So say yes to everything, but then keep that childlike wonder and intrinsic ability to like learn and try new things, really keen, like right there, because now's the time you got to be learning and dynamically learning and changing. So
That's sage advice from a great leader. So, if you want to become a great leader, Kris is a great person to follow, like I do. Kris, thank you so much for sharing yourself with my audience at Ed Talks.